Welcome, viewers. I'm so excited that you've joined us today for the kickoff of the Scotiabank Women Initiative Virtual MasterClass. I'm Sloan Muldoon, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Retail Performance with Scotiabank and Chair of the Scotiabank Women Initiative. Now at Scotiabank, we have a vision and commitment to strengthen equality for women business owners. We believe that one way to do so is to support women-owned and women-led businesses. The Scotiabank Women Initiative empowers women to take their businesses, careers, and financial futures to the next level. We are committed to dismantling barriers faced by women. The program aims to raise awareness of unconscious bias and provides access to capital, financial services, education, advice, and mentorship. And while the world is experiencing challenges like never before, we are continuing our mission of helping women take their businesses to the next level. The impacts of COVID-19 have disproportionately affected women. Women-led businesses already face unique challenges, but the COVID-19 pandemic has put added pressure on women entrepreneurs who are now trying to navigate a dramatically altered landscape. Physical distancing measures necessary to slow the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic have dealt a blow to sectors which rely on in-person interactions, such as travel and tourism, restaurants, and personal services, where women are more prevalent. COVID-19 has accelerated the need for rapid digital transformation and pivoting to alternate sources and virtual settings. The pandemic also has accelerated the online banking industry and changed the way we live, shop, and work. The ability to pivot and have resiliency will remain important for all of us as we look ahead. And to that end, I'm pleased to be joined by our panel of experts. Moderator Casey Olaf, Director and Head Enterprise Digital Growth, Engagement and Performance Management with Scotiabank. And our panelists, Jose Martins, Partnerships, HubSpot for Startups North America. Agnes Land, Business Owner, Director, Business Development at Change Connect. And Nicole German, VP and Head, Global Enterprise Digital Marketing and Growth, and an advisory board member of the Scotiabank Women Initiative. Casey, I turn it over to you for an engaging conversation.
All right. Thank you very much, Sloan. And Nicole, Agnes, Jose, really excited to have you here with us this morning. And I'm really looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have today. Let's get right into it. If you think back over the past year and the pandemic, everyone has had to make pivots, both in their personal and in their business lives, as things have changed and the way people do business has changed. I'm looking for your insights into what pivots you've had to make in your personal workspaces as the pandemic hit and lockdowns came into effect over the course of the last year. Agnes, we'll start with you.
Thanks so much, TJ. So, if I think about COVID-19, it's actually the biggest change agent ever, I think, in our industry and all industry in general. When you think about the contactless world, vast majority of interaction with customer now need to take place virtually. It's either you go digital or go dark, right? So if you think about management consulting, we work with people. So we change people's behavior. No water cooler conversation, no lunches. We find that we had to transform our way of working overnight. So, some quick things that we had to change right away, down to we have to move our services virtual. We have to move our very heavy face-to-face selling process to one that's more remote. In nature, we close our physical training facilities. There's just no need for those anymore. And in terms of a technology change, if I think back, now you're thinking about March 16 when it locked down, right? So almost a year and a bit, we moved all our delivery platform virtual. All of us have to get used to remote work, down to communication tools. You think you're a great communicator until this happens, right? Different ways of communicating internally and externally. We also find ourselves having to have a more robust database. We do sales, strategy and sales training for a living. And if you think about, us internally, we still need to add way more notes than what we thought we have to make sure that our internal processes are not broken, security and access, and down to digital payment. Like, we have to do less checks, more ETFs,
Mhm.
on online team building, like, from bingos to murder mystery. So, we found ourselves having to change a lot overnight in just various different aspects of our business operation.
Awesome. And yeah, we've definitely had to do similar things on our side as well. Jose, interested in seeing some of the things that you guys had to pivot to at HubSpot as well.
Yeah, it's and I would say it's also changed with time, right? Like the pandemic has been long enough where like our reaction to it has changed. In the beginning was the main word was empathy, and it meant a lot of things. It meant empathy to our customers. So we had to create new assets, landing pages with information on how we're supporting customers, unlocking some of the functionality in our platform that we knew was crucial for some businesses that needed to operate in the digital world, but we're not getting that cash flow in at that moment. So we unlocked some of our paid functionality. We enabled some more automated flexibility on renewals. So customers we had that were coming up for renewals, so we're a SaaS platform, a CRM platform. And so yearly we have renewals. Each customer renews yearly. So having more flexibility in the renewal terms and educating our renewals team, of course, first with empathy, but second with this is what you can do, and you don't need to ask a bunch of people for permission to do these extra conditions. So those were a couple of the big ones we did early on. Then on the employee side is, well, how do we enable our team to work remotely? We're lucky where what we do and how we sell is mainly done from, a desk. But it's different to be in a desk in an office building than to be in the, in the living room of your house. So how do we enable our team to navigate the difficulty outside of, the work life, but also how to execute on their work with more technology, more resources, more information. And as Agnes says, communication became crucial back then, like over communicating. We increase the detail and frequency of communications from the leadership to the rest of the team and even internally. And I would say what I've been seeing lately after a year of going through this is we're investing more and more of our resources into wellness programs for the employees, so that, you've been 1 year in lockdown or whatever context you've been globally, you need more help with your mental health and your physical health after a year of this. So those are the things we've dealt with.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, the dynamic you have to kind of balance between, pivoting for your customers versus pivoting for your employees. And sometimes those things are similar, but sometimes they're very different as well. And I have seen those change over time, over the course of the years you mentioned, Jose. So definitely an interesting perspective. And Nicole, at Scotiabank, what are some of the, the pivots that you've had to kind of make on your team as well, both from an employee side and a customer side as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And to be honest, we're still transforming, much like Jose said, to even today, right? We continue to transform. But I like to refer to it really as the next normal, because even when the pandemic's over, and yes, it's going to come to an end, things more than likely will not be going back to the way it was. And our consumer behaviors have changed, right? And we will also continue to change. And so for me, what changed really out of the gates, and I'm going to start with a little bit of a personal scenario, is that I've been home basically 24/7 with two incredible teenage boys. And so while I wouldn't trade that for the world, I realized that grade 10 French math is not my forte. And when isolated at home, two young men can power through, a huge load of groceries in record time. So, well, that's my story. We had all of our employees that were home, faced with, dealing with families or elders or, other situations that were really different. So that was a really, really important component to really understand and like Jose is have that notion of empathy to be of support, but also recognize that, everyone's working hours weren't necessarily the same. So from a work perspective, part one for us was getting everyone set up and working efficiently remotely. That's we don't want to underestimate, the importance of that, because my large team needed to have strong access to the internet, right, to be able to connect to a VPN or a virtual private network, as we were running and building all of the websites, not across the bank, but also around the world, and all of the digital campaigns and communications, right? So everything from even a communications perspective went digitally or sort of scaled digitally. So we had to ensure we could deliver on that, but also that we could test and really ensure quality assurance through that process. Right. And then our next priority was really to support our customers, and we shifted very dramatically from what would have historically or traditionally focused on more of a sales perspective to a service perspective, ensuring that our customers that were not using digital, right, that were not accustomed to banking through digital services could learn to use digital. And second was to ensure that particularly our most vulnerable customers had access to the financial relief programs that were available, right? Really making sure that particularly those customers that were in need or distress were able to have access to that. And so we partnered with our analytics teams to help leverage predictable insights, right, to help prioritize the greatest needs, as well as personalize our communications and to provide outreach, for those that needed support and the rest of our customer base. So those were some of the big things, I think, early days, and now that's really a lot of our normal, it seems like today.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to hear, not just all the different changes from both an employee and customer perspective, but also how similar they are, even though the businesses are relatively, different. It's important to see that the focus seems to be, aiming at the same solution in the first place, which is, being empathetic for your customers and your employees at the same time. If I double down on your point, Nicole, just around, supporting businesses in that time frame, a lot of businesses had to pivot to the digital space, as Agnes has kind of mentioned as well, which is trying to get their payment cycle in the digital space as well. What are some of the things that Scotiabank has done to kind of support real-time digital payments as well for businesses in that space?
Yeah, great. I mean, we know COVID highlighted the need to be able to make payments and bank digitally, and Scotia was really there to answer that need through the first to market launch of real-time e-transfer for business, as well as the scaling of our availability of international money transfer, which is also known as IMT, and our remote deposit capture service. Scotia really provides solutions for customers to enable remote banking without compromise on efficiency or also very important security, of course. And so e-transfer for business is really the capability to send and receive funds instantly through real-time confirmation, and actually has higher transaction limits. So more customers see the benefit of this payment type as it's really more efficient. I mean, you can effectively do this, at home from your kitchen table, and then it includes a lot more data and information capture to eliminate some of the need for paper-based trails. As an example, you can have up to 5 different invoice numbers, accompanying details that can be added to a single transfer. And then international money transfer for those that are actually moving money over sort of cross-border is actually in beta phase. And then once launched, this will also be an opportunity for our customers to use this service because it has a low service fee option, right, to be able to very quickly and easily do those transfers. And so, our goal really for all of our customers, and particularly our business customers, is really to support their needs and prioritize digital payment modernization to help them be more efficient, but also to deliver great service, whether it's with their vendors or with their consumers, to have that available.
That's really great. And Jose, as I think about, businesses that are newly shifting into the digital space and really enhancing their capabilities on that side to kind of support the new normal, as Nicole mentioned, what are some of the risks and oversights that you've seen that tend to kind of happen in that space as businesses shift over into digital?
Great question, and it's a different answer right now, right? Like in general, like Hopspot exists to enable that ability to connect or create a remarkable experience with customers in a digital space. and we've been here for 15 years. So it's not new for us. But
Right.
what's new in the last year was there was an acceleration in adoption of that change. And we believe to our core that the way to grow better as a company is to have a portion of it be digital, connect digitally with prospects and customers. And what happened with the pandemic is there was an acceleration in that decision making. And so we first had to adjust to the increasing volume to make sure we were not only helping people move into that world, but also kind of execute well. So we had to ramp up not only our sales resources, but also like our customer support resources and customer success resources. So that's one part. The other part is when people move to digital, and this is maybe just beyond just the last year, is sometimes companies see digital as a panacea for a bunch of problems that are happening. And what happens as a result of that is that they put the technology in front of everything else. And so, and I've been at HubSpot for 5 years, and I was in sales for many of those years when I started. And when I spoke with a customer who wanted to become more digital, their mindset usually was, well, what does this tool do? How does this gadget work? How do I do a workflow? How do I automate emails? And that is a wrong question. I would tell them, hey, you're putting the technology in front of your customer and before your business, and you need to start the other way around. So the best way to approach this is what we call a flywheel. So if you think of your business connecting with customers as a flywheel, and the flywheel has when you have a part of your business objective is to connect with prospects or current customers to grow the relationship. The other part of your flywheel is, well, like once they're ready to engage in a conversation with you, be it digitally or with a sales rep somewhere, even with your website, you have the resources for that. And then the delight part, which is basically the delivery of the promise when they came in. And if you see that as a cycle and not as a funnel, you'll see that if you remove friction for those three things happening simultaneously and in harmony, your company grows faster. And so one of the things we want companies to do before they just go into the technologies, they think about that flywheel as well, when I'm connecting with your customers and you're acquiring traffic for your website, for example, as an attract, what is creating friction in more people finding you? And what are some of the processes for them to engage with you easily? And then you have your customer first and the friction they have interacting with your company. Then what are the processes that will solve that? And then after that is when the technology comes. So you should leave the technology for the end of that thinking process. And I'll give you an example. We have a segment, which is the segment I work in, which is a startups segment. And we were seeing a ton of friction from founders who were not getting started as quickly as they wanted with our platform. By getting started, I mean buying actually HubSpot, a subscription. And we first thought this was a sales training problem. Like, oh, the salespeople are not responding fast enough to these leads who are asking for help. And we thought first this was a problem of, well, we need to make sure that there's a strong SLA where reps need to answer to a lead request within 24 hours of the request. That was not the problem. The problem was we looked into the persona. So you start with the customer. And the problem was the founders who are technically savvy actually know way more about these technologies than the average buyer of HubSpot. And so they knew what they needed. They only needed a quick way to buy. They didn't need to speak with someone from sales to buy the HubSpot platform. So the solution wasn't to train reps. The solution was to enable purchases online for that segment. So we had to then design the processes for that. How do I identify you're a startup founder? And then enabling, okay, because you're a startup founder, that persona in general doesn't need to speak with sales. So I'm going to allow you to buy HubSpot. So you have that buy now click, not only the talk to sales CTA button. That's just a quick example of understanding your customer, the friction point, then what's the process that's going to eliminate or at least reduce that friction point with technology.
Jose, I think it's really an important message, right? Is the technology is really the enabler, right? And to your point of like not starting with the technology and starting with the customer, I think that's a really key point, and you know what you pointed out. So
yeah, and I think it's also really interesting and a great point, Jose, in terms of understanding the differences in the customer segments, right? Like different customers have different needs, and sometimes there's a natural reaction to kind of provide the same solution for the entire customer segment. But it's good to understand what those nuances look like underneath the hood to be able to customize your solutions to be able to kind of solve for those different needs. So very good insight there. And speaking of startups and small businesses, Agnes, like as you've kind of scaled up your operations and implemented technology, what are some of the learnings that you kind of came across as you implemented technology to kind of complement both your business processes and your customer solutions?
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna echo what Jose just mentioned too. We have clients that came to us early days, back in April, because the buzzword is that they have to digitalize or they have to leverage technology. We're a partner of HubSpot, so they would come and say, you know what? I'm gonna implement workflow. I'm gonna implement automation. I'm gonna implement. I need better reports, Agnes. And the question goes back to exactly what Jose like was talking about there, right? It's technology cannot be the lead. It needs to be your business needs, right? Why do you think you need automation? Why do you think you need workflow? Why do you think you need better reporting? To what end goal are we serving, right? So consistent with what I'm seeing with some of our clients as well. But when you talk about the different lessons I've learned in the past year, I would say a couple of things. I think every organization have to embrace digital solutions, number one, and every organization have to know and be adaptable to change. The quicker you are with both of those, the greater resilience you have in keeping your business alive and giving your business a chance, because that is your sort of your leg over the competitor per se. I've seen in our client base, I've seen let's in same industry, let's say digital marketing agencies. I have seen through this year some of them thrived and some of them had to fold, right? And it comes down to how quickly were they able to pivot some of their internal processes, if you think about it. So I think that's important. Internal, I can tell you, we started to reinvent pretty much from day one. We pride ourselves on being pretty agile here, and we took the opportunity to look at it not as, oh my God, this is COVID. Now everyone has to be home, and what happens? Like we don't have enough pipeline to fill our pipe if we don't sell for 3 months. I'm like, oh my God! Like we took that as a chance to sort of, hey, you know what? We need to reinvent ourselves. We need to have better business development processes per se, right?
Yeah.
What are some things that we can do? And we took a look at it with 5 different standpoints. So we looked at it for efficiency. We looked at pretty much all our internal processes and we evaluate efficiency. We looked at productivity. We look at security. Security is one that, especially with small mid-sized business, something that we put in the back burner because we figure we're either with the Google stack or whether we're with the Microsoft stack and someone else, our vendor, HubSpot, or Scotiabank, will take care of it, right? But then you start to realize, oh my God, the more and more you go digital, the more and more you have to understand security and customer experience, right? Like sometimes isn't, I have a lot of our clients come to me and say, Agnes, thank you for that call. You're not calling to push me to buy from you. You're calling from a genuine place of interest and wanting to know how I'm doing. And thank you for that. Right. So those kind of touch points important during this time because we're in it together. Right. We're, pandemic or not, this is a community, this is a business community, and we support each other, right? One another. So that's important. And last but not least, obviously, is your organizational agility, the ability to pivot not just at a certain level, right? The ability to lead and be able to bring everyone along with you. It's important. In the last year, you can see, who are leaders and who are not as good at leading. So it's Now, those are all, 1 year later, it's easy to say, happened in 2020, but it is a lot of work involved in the last year in the whole digital transformation. But I think the last piece of advice here I would also say is because we're moving, time is of such an importance during this time. If you think about, forget about COVID for a second, even if you just talk about change in the last year, we have this external change agent have forced us all to change very quickly. And if when time is of essence, I think one of the things that's worth thinking about is, really reach out to your partners, really reach out to people you trust instead of doing it alone. A lot of businesses and leaders and people, Canadian in general, we're DIYers. Like we like to do it ourselves because we can, right?
Right.
But if you think about it, if time is of essence, you really have to be leveraging your partner, hire a professional, and really get on board the transformation path quicker than you have ever done before. So definitely reach out to your available resources and treat this as a community change rather than an organizational change per se.
Yeah, and I really think, organizational agility, and the word agility has almost taken a different form over the past year. I think in the past we've looked at it from a perspective of software development, but I think now the word is more representative of decision-making agility and being able to kind of make those decisions quickly and execute on them pretty fast as well, because that's the only way to kind of maintain an advantage in the current environment. And as we think about the next stage and the next normal and some of these emerging trends that we're seeing both from a customer perspective and a business opportunity perspective, Nicole and Agnes would love to hear your thoughts on this, but let's start with Nicole. What are some of the unique opportunities that you see for women business owners in this space as these new trends start to emerge?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's so unique per se. I think we could probably talk a full half hour just on this specifically. But it's really going back to the theme that we've already talking about, looking at everything from the lens of your customer, right? Starting there and really trying to make things very simple and easy for them, right? Those great and easy experiences will keep them, keep your customers coming back. And so I think the idea of when you focus on your customer experience and the enabling, applications or, to be able to deliver that, and then constantly fine tuning to make sure that it's working. I think Jose had a great example of that. I mean, we've seen that as well, as where, we build something and then by looking at the data, we realize that perhaps something's off, and then we go into discovery mode to understand that. And so I think an important consideration is when we look at consumer data in the marketplace, don't underestimate the level of things that are happening on purely mobile, right? I think we're all accustomed to sort of being on our computers, but whether people are researching or whether they're purchasing or whether they're doing getting customer service, a lot of it is happening on a mobile device. And when you go from a screen that's this big, right, down to this big, it's a very, very different experience. You don't need as much information, and so I would recommend that also you look at your customers, but also really consider, should this really be a call it a mobile first consideration, because that's where the majority of people are looking for the information or interacting with you as a business. So I would say those are really important things. I don't know if it's unique, Casey, but things that we consider within my team quite significantly.
And Agnes, your thoughts?
I am with Nicole there. I don't know that it is female entrepreneur driven, but I am very proud of the woman entrepreneur community. It is one that I see and thrive during this time. And when you talk about, when I talked about earlier about helping each other and building a community and being there for each other and the support system necessary, it's I find that I had a lot more resources to reach out to, and people are not just the female community, but I am very proud of it, that
Mhm.
I'm finding a lot of resources. People are very open to, helping one another, being there for each other without an agenda. And I'm finding a lot of leaders, both female and male, which during this time I've built some fantastic relationship and friendship with that I bet you I wouldn't have built otherwise before, because we were all just so busy, right?
Mhm.
You can't take a 15-minute call, talk to someone that you don't know before. Now you're like, oh, okay, so and so friend needs something. Yeah, I have 15 minutes to talk about this. This is an area of expertise of mine. Sure, why not? Right? There's a lot of why not. Let's help. Let's build this community together. Sort of attitude right now. So I want to embrace that. But from a client standpoint, I would say my word of advice here is same as what Nicole just mentioned there too, in terms of customer experience. I would say an online. I want to sort of jump on that to say your online presence, people that are going online for the first time, whether mobile or through a device. Um, if you think about it, throughout the pandemic, we've worked with organizations to adopt change. Don't be scared of being online. I think that's very important. If you think about it, 97% of the consumer nowadays, whether it's B2B or B2C, actually hop onto a platform of some sort to do their initial research. So, 97%, like how can you not be online, right? So don't be scared of it. The other thing also is take an opportunity during this time to reinvest in your business, right? Don't look at it like a defensive move. Think of it as a reset. Think of it as a way to grow a business line per se. For example, like we've been working with some of our clients where traditionally they are brick and mortar business. And initially before they talk to us, they think that a brick and mortar business and translate that into a digital business is a one-to-one transformation. And I can tell you right now, it's not. Back to exactly what Nicole just mentioned, because the customer experience, because what the customer chase after in an online service may be different than coming to your brick and mortar. You really got to think about what is the customer experience there and try to drive that. You need to satisfy your client, you need to satisfy your customer, and what is it that they ultimately want from their experience. So refresh your market research, refresh and build a new customer journey, right? Take a look at the customer avatar, and back to what Jose mentioned earlier, look at the way you're offering your pricing, right? All of that matters in terms of going digital. So don't treat it as a one-to-one translation of a business model. I think it's not. I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't look at it in a broader standpoint, broader sense. And I would also say, look at the push versus the pull strategy of marketing, right? The pull meaning the content, which Jose spoke to before, the personification of your brand, and the push of the online advertising, influencer marketing. Work with professional on that. And last but not least, I would leave you guys with, automation. Let technology work for you. Like HubSpot. Why would you use your hand to wash clothes when you can use a washer to do your job? Like, I just don't get it. So definitely leverage technology if you get a chance to.
Right, and I think that's even a really good segue for you, Jose, as well, because as we think about specific customer journeys, how important is it for businesses to customize their solutions as they're establishing that digital footprint, and what kind have you seen as you've kind of helped businesses do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one we deal with every day. Is how do you leverage technology to achieve something that every business should strive to achieve, which is interacting in a more human way with their customers. And by human, like part of the human part of it is the personalization. Can I treat you as a one person, not as a group of 1,000? Do you feel like one unique person I'm interacting with, or do you feel like one in a million that I'm reaching out today? And we've been on the other side of that when it's not personalized. All these templated cold emails prospecting into your business, right? We've read them on. We know that same email was sent to thousands of others. I'm like, yeah, you didn't take the time to learn more about me. So a CRM platform can help you gather enough context about each individual prospect so that you can customize not only to the information you know about them, but also the timing, right? You don't want to reach out to a prospect. You don't want your sales team to reach out to a prospect that is giving you signals that they're early on in the research about their problem and solution. What you want to do there is you want to send them, you basically are matching the most helpful resource to your customer at the stage of the buying process they're in. So if they're early on, what you want to do is send them more information, more emails with guides, maybe an invite to a webinar when you're talking about this problem. And that's how you interact with them. If they're giving you signals that they are actually later on their buying process and they may need help from like a human to help them navigate the later stages or answer some questions, that's when the chat bot or the chat on your website comes in. That's where your talk to sales CTA comes in, or that's when your sales team start reaching out to these prospects, or even your customer service team to a current customer that is showing signals that they're struggling with, either using your solution or giving signals that they need an additional level of help. So technology and automation helps you, because the problem with all that I said is if you do this manually, it's not scalable, and then you become unprofitable, right? And then you being out of business is not the goal either. So automation, workflows, all these, what helps you is be personalized at scale, and so have that more human relationship with your customers, but also enabling doing it at scale so that you're still profitable and
Right.
creating a great customer experience.
Right. And so, as we kind of get to the end of this discussion, and you guys have all put together really, really fantastic ideas and tips that I think would be really, really helpful. As you want to leave some final words, what are the one or two things that you think will be most important, specifically for women-led businesses, as they kind of go through, the next phase of the pandemic, as vaccines start to roll out and lockdowns start to lift, because that becomes a new environment that businesses have to think through as well. What are the one or two things that you think top of mind that women-led businesses should be thinking about in this new time frame? And maybe we'll start with you, Agnes.
I think my one word of advice is definitely the idea of community. I think, a lot of female entrepreneurs, especially, both Nicole and I are moms. So, we try to do it alone too, more often than not, because we put on the hat of a mom, we put on the hat of an entrepreneur, a good workmate, a servant, leader, friend, wife, partner. Like there's so many hats, and more often than not, because of our place in the family, we're also that pillar for everybody. We are that gel in the family, and we want to be able to resolve all issues, right? But I think you got to realize that there is a community around us. We can contribute to that community, but we can also take from that community and really understand that it's just more than just us. I learned, that's my personal takeaway, and I definitely want other female entrepreneurs to start leveraging all the resources available to us.
Awesome. And Jose, your tips?
So I can only speak as an upstander, and I have a wife who's starting a business from home, and she's been at it for 2 years. So in the middle of the pandemic, there was something disheartening that is quickly transforming into something positive. It's that thing where like a crisis will highlight problems that you weren't paying attention to. I think one of the results that I've read and seen firsthand happens with a pandemic like the one we had is the women are significantly more affected than men. Like there's a regression in, if there's two parents at home and the kids are going to school from home, it's predominantly the mom who takes the hit, which is very unfair. And so that's the unfair part. That was the disheartening part in the first few months or the first half of it. What I've been seeing lately, and Agnes mentioned this before, is you're seeing a proliferation of resources that are genuine, right? Genuine resources to help women, professionals and women entrepreneurs do better. And I echo Agnes' advice of seek out these resources and take them, right? Use the help. So the positive side that I see coming out of all of this is this. First, the making the embedded problem in our system more tangible, like that disparity in opportunity. The second is the genuine interest for many actors to support and make it more equitable. So it's more a word of optimism as well.
Awesome. And Nicole?
Yeah, great. I mean, I think we've talked about so many things today, you know, customer experience, the notion of empathy and support, community and advice. And, you know, I would, you know, my advice, and I'll put in a bit of a Scotiabank plug, is like the Scotia Women Initiative is just that, right? So whether you need support with respect to financial services, but also community and advice and mentorship. I mean, we created the Digital Hub to help, you know, organizations, you know, that are faced with the pandemic. But, you know, this is really about evolving. And so my, you know, similar to what Agnes mentioned is, you know, reach out, get connected with the Scotia Women Initiative, so that, you know, you know, all of us, frankly, can help connect you to people that can be helpful, have been through it before, or even specific, you know, challenges that you're having, you know, point you in the right solution. So either we can share our experiences and learnings, which was really have almost like a coach along the way, or we can point you into the direction of you know, the experts, right, in very specialized areas. And so that would be, you know, my encouragement. And I think, you know, we want to continue to have those conversations and hope to really that, you know, people continue to reach out and we can provide that advice through the Scotia Women Initiative specifically. So.
Awesome. Agnes, Jose, Nicole, thanks so much for a great discussion today. It was really insightful to be able to understand all the pivots and changes you all had to make, you know, over the last year. I think, you know, as you've all kind of mentioned, there are unique opportunities presenting themselves as the new year kind of comes into play. And truthfully, the next few years, I think will be a very kind of different business environment. And I think all the tips that you've mentioned today are going to be super important in helping drive growth for businesses going forward. So thank you again for the great discussion. Thanks for allowing me to ask the questions and get the great insights from you all. It was really fantastic. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Casey.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right. So thank you very much, Nicole, and, you know, Agnes and Jose. Thanks so much for an insightful discussion today. It was really, really great to hear your tips, not just on the changes you've made over the past year with the pandemic, but also the tips that you have as people start to look forward to what the new normal looks like and how people grow their businesses in the future. So thanks so much for your time today, and I'll pass it right back to Sloan.
Thanks, Casey, and thanks to all of our panelists. Jose, Agnes, and Nicole, thanks for joining us today. And what a great, lively discussion. So with that, as I bring this to a close, I'd invite all of our viewers to tour the Scotiabank Women Initiative Digital Hub, and also take the opportunity to sign up for the newsletter, the Scotiabank Women Initiative. Thanks again for taking time to join us for our first ever virtual masterclass. Take care and stay safe.